And welcome back to Spare Bedroom Studios. I'm your host, The Shimmick, and this is Conversation with Ventilation. CIV if you want to get classy, want to keep it short. And in today's episode, we got a gray Chevy Cruze with its lights on in the parking lot. Gray Chevy Cruze, license plate LARP 365, LARP 365. Whoever's out there LARPing 365 days a year, your lights are on. Gray Chevy Cruze. It makes no mention of the tint, but I guarantee you it's bubbled on the back window. LARP 365, gray Chevy Cruze. You got your lights on in the parking lot. All right, here we go. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. As always, we're going to start off by sending this episode out to a fallen first responder. And unfortunately, Taylor Bristow is no longer, he's rest in peace. And that's, I'm at a mix for words. The hard part about what happened to Tyler Bristow is, I'll get into it in a second. So he was killed Tuesday, August 20th, 2024. And, he is with Carroll County Sheriff's Office over here in Georgia, just east of us. And I guess what hit me when I saw this, and I'm not laughing, what hit me is that the assailant, what happened was the assailant asked that he went in the house. And it got me thinking about how many times as a fireman we go in homes. And what happened was when he in the house, he was there to serve a warrant, and that person pulled out a gun and tried to commit suicide. And in doing so, ended up hitting Taylor Bristow as well. Officer spent several days in the hospital and then later died. And so it's kind of hitting. It's hitting me a little bit right now. I realize how many homes we go in and how often we don't know the mental state of some of these people and what they're doing. It's scary. So, hearts out to Carroll County Sheriff's Office and Taylor Bristow's family and friends. Let's give a sip to Taylor. So this episode's going to be for him. Let's keep him in our thoughts and prayers, as well as the family. It's never easy. So, like I said, let's take a minute and remember and think about what we do and the doors that we go through. And it's kind of, sometimes we forget what we do and how often we're in people's homes, and it's scary. So, fortunately, that happened. So, all right, this one's for you, buddy. So today, let's get back into it. Today, we're going to talk about just a quick one. And the reason why it's quick is because it's part of the overall talk, the overall CIV, conversation is ventilation talk, that I like to give and am giving. And I'm going to call it a chapter in the book. If it was a book, it's a few slides on the PowerPoint. But what happens is when I bring up this topic, it usually is the one that will get people talking. And what it does is it creates a talking point. It creates a story for the people who want to talk and share. It'll bring a memory up, and then it's usually what they want to share. And it's easy to do. And so let's get into that a little bit. So what I'm calling White Cross Syndrome, I dubbed it that. I haven't done any research in psychiatry or psychology, so if that is something that's already taken, I don't know. We're coining the phrase White Cross Syndrome. It's got a ring to it, and I don't know. It sounds smart. Sounds like I went to college, okay? And I did. It was community college, and I dropped out all 3 times. So I don't want you to think I'm smart in naming cool stuff, but White Cross Syndrome seems to be kind of a hit. It's often one of the things when people will come up to me, they'll usually bring up a White Cross, and I started to notice that, this is kind of a way to break the ice, kind of a way to get people, if you don't know them very well. It's an icebreaker. It's a conversation starter. It's something to talk about. It's a starting point, whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it. So White Cross syndrome. So what exactly is it? What I'm saying, and what I'm kind of a one sentence definition, is it's the placing of mental white crosses around town where traumatic calls have happened. Okay. So, as first responders, obviously, we don't need much explanation past that. Okay. Traumatic calls, locations. These can be anything from an intersection to a certain house to a certain corner on a certain block, light poles, trees, power lines, a curve in a road, a certain curve, a certain drainage ditch, sections of trees that, you might have a homeless camp in, anything that your brain, it's a mental white cross that we put these things there. And what happens is, and one of the weird things that I'm starting to kind of bring out and talk about is that nobody really explains to you when you first get in this business that you're going to be placing these things all over town where these things happen. And you're going to relive those things every time you see the white cross. Now, obviously, with them being mental white crosses, they're not always a real white cross. Obviously, a white cross, most of us are familiar. You drive down the interstate or the highway or somewhere. If there's a bad wreck and somebody's died, there's always a white cross. Families usually put up memorials for these, you might see one that has a name and some flowers and balloons. Sometimes they're pretty elaborate. And, somebody lost their life there. Something bad happened there. And that family is trying to memorialize or, keep their family member, their memory alive and remember, that happening. And what, as first responders, when it's our job to go do those things, we're constantly placing the white crosses all over town. And like I said, nobody takes the time to explain that. And I don't remember in my 20 years so far of anyone ever really talking about what we're talking about here. It's this accumulation of white crosses. And I think that is one of the many things that leads to burnout. And I think it's one of the many things that leads us kind of to when you wake up and you don't recognize the man in the mirror and 20 years, 25 years down the road. I think this is an accumulation process. It's also too much smoke in the box. And that's another podcast for a later date. So I think it's something that needs to be discussed. And it also is something that we're going to start bringing into the recruit schools early. We're working on kind of an SOG standard, whatever, to kind of manage the new guys, for the first 365 days of their career. And we're going to try to start putting that together. And one of those things is helping them understand that when these things happen, oftentimes in the first year of your career, it's the first time you've seen something like that. And so your brain is going to put a white cross there, and when you drive down the road for the next 25 years of your career and you always go through a light and you remember that call from 20 years ago and that girl that wrapped her car on the tree or died in your arms, or that bad shooting you went to, or, it's these little personal traumatic experiences that you're reliving. And one of the things that we talk about, obviously, is that there were others on the truck and others on the call. So not only do we need to be talking to them about it, but it's also kind of personal because we remember things our own way. And, several people have said, if you have 4 on an engine and we run on a call, there's going to be 4 different ways that call is remembered. There's going to be 4 different experiences. And that's another reason why we need to be sharing and helping each other, because let's be honest, one call that is completely traumatic for a brand new first-year first responder could be something that doesn't even blip the radar on a guy who's been here 15, 20 years. You never know. And also, you've heard first responders, many first responders, if you're dealing with a child and, if they have a child at home roughly the same age, a very basic, simple medical call with a child that is, can send them overboard because they see, sometimes they see their children. You run a child drowning and, you have to be a complete psychopath not to have a reaction to that. But if you have a 3-year-old at home and you're holding, you pull a 3-year-old out of a pool, your brain is going to do some things. So it's a very traumatic thing. Another guy at the scene might not have those feelings. And so, like I said, 4 different stories for 4 different people. But the white crosses thing is a really interesting thing, and it comes up a lot. And we're going to do a better job of helping these new people understand that this is normal. Okay. And that seems to be a pretty common thing for all of this is explaining to the people that are just getting here, hey, this is normal. This is normal. And if we can help keep the new guy or the new girl from feeling isolated and feeling like it's just them, and we can help them understand that these are normal thoughts and feelings, they're going to be they're just going to have a better career because they're not going to feel isolated. They're going to feel part of the team. They're going to feel supported. And it's just an all around better thing. And that's one of the obvious things that we are realizing we're making some big mistakes and we got to do a better job. One of the reasons why we're here right now is we're trying to fix that. We're trying to shed the light on the fact that we're not doing a good enough job in some of these things. Okay. So they add up over the years. Okay. And if you don't want to talk about anything and something keeps building, at some point you're going to suffocate. Just like the rookie in episode 1 or 2, I believe, when I told you the story, he said it's getting harder and harder to breathe. Okay. If you don't empty the smoke, if you don't ventilate, if you don't get some of these things off your chest or work through some of these things, you can't keep piling on the plate. Whatever analogy you want to use, and we have several, whatever analogy you want to use, you can only put so much in the bowl. You can only have so much trauma before eventually something is going to spill out and you're going to have a problem. It's one of the reasons why we burn out, one of the reasons why at 25 years we're a mess. We got to start talking about it earlier. We got to start identifying why, and we got to start doing a better job. It's very simple, kindergarten stuff. Okay. If you're playing along at home, I said kindergarten stuff, and you should take a drink. Every time we say kindergarten stuff, you take a drink, whatever you like to drink. So it's not rocket science. Okay. In the class, I told them about 4 that I had between my station and the edge of our territory for our city. It's an interstate that runs north and south and then peels off to the east when I'm going home. I have 4, and I relive those 4 coming to work, and then I relive them again when I leave work 2 days later. And they're always on my mind, and it's a weird thing, and I'm never really going to not be able to remember those things, because if you remember something intensely, sometimes it's just a passing, and I remember, but sometimes it's an intense thing, an intense memory. And how am I supposed to go up and down the interstate for the next 40 years of my life? Okay. So those are the things we're going to do a better job talking about. Okay. So it's a real thing, and it's something that needs to be shared more. And I think I mentioned that a lot of people are usually coming up to me and wanting to tell what I'm calling a white cross story. And these are things that they're memories that they've had. Some of them are pretty traumatic, but they're wanting to share a story. They're talking about a white cross, and it's a really good thing to see because that's them ventilating, and they see it. We all see it. We all know it. We should be doing it. And I haven't had anyone yet going, this is dumb, or I don't want to talk about it. Most first responders will talk about, the calls, and even the fires can be white crosses. And also, white crosses don't have to always be traumatic. White cross you can also have one, for a house fire that was just blowing and going one night, and you got there and the crews, and we were flowing water, and it was just a great night. Unfortunately, someone's house burnt down or burned up pretty good, but you had a great night, and that was a memory. So it doesn't have to be a negative. It normally is. I think the negatives obviously are the ones that cause the most problems, and they're the ones that need to be talked about. Okay. And also, this is also a good way to begin opening the door with others. Okay. Is talking about white crosses. I've caught myself saying, hey, see that intersection right there? We just drove through. I said, 5 years ago, we had this really bad wreck, and this girl ran through, and, it was on prom or something, or, and it's just me sharing with somebody who didn't work there at the time, work here at the time. And it's just ventilating. It's just talking about, it's just showing them that it's okay, because it's very contagious. So all right, that's White Cross Syndrome, and it's a chapter in the presentation. It's probably going to continue to grow. I think it's one of those areas that people go, yeah. I think we have a name for it now. It's kind of catchy, and it's just a really good way to get people to open up and start having conversations, start telling stories. Tell me what you remember. How did you feel when that happened? Are you reliving that call every time you drive through that intersection? And, can you not get that off your mind? And, how are we dealing with that in a healthy way? So, all righty. Well, short and sweet, 16 minutes or so. I'm happy you're here. Please like and subscribe, share with everybody. We're trying to get this out there, shedding the light on, something that we're trying to improve. There's several people out there doing a really good job, and I want to be one of them. And I hope I'm adding to the story, adding to the solution instead of the problem. So CIV, Conversation is Ventilation. Thank you for coming in. Like and subscribe, like I said. Share, like I said. And have a great day. And stay safe. And like I said, stay together.